Discourses. So today we will have a session on His Holiness Mukunda Goswami Maharaj. So today there will be a change in the schedule. Like Prabhuji has a lecture to give at IIT for IIT students. So he will introduce Mukunda Goswami Maharaj first from 5:30 to 5:45, and then we will hear from His Holiness Mukunda Goswami Maharaj. So over to His Grace Maharaj Chaitanya Prabhu. You can introduce Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Dhanapranam.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, His Grace Krishna Kirtan Prabhu. I am greatly honored to be here among all the great stalwart devotees. I seek your blessing so that I can speak something about the pure devotee, great stalwart disciple of Srila Prabhupada, His Holiness Mukunda Swami Maharaj. I will start with a small prayer. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakya Chachurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we'll begin with the PPT. So His Holiness Mukund Goswami Maharaj, one of the first disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Was born in Portland, Oregon, USA on 10th April 1952. His legal name was Michael Grant. Is still there. Legal name is Michael Grant. And he graduated from Reed College in Portland, Oregon. So how he got introduced to Krishna consciousness is very amazing. So he was very much interested in music, and his friend introduced about Srila Prabhupada to him. And when he met Srila Prabhupada in the Bari, then Srila Prabhupada was in a very humble position, in a very humble area. And Mukund Maharaj would go there, would learn from Srila Prabhupada the teachings. And on his request, Srila Prabhupada started teaching Sanskrit. So, and in Sanskrit language, when he would the Prabhupada would teach the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. So that's how Mukund Maharaj learned that how Prabhupada is trying to teach the philosophy through Sanskrit language. Yeah, and later on, Prabhupada shifted to a place where he was staying with an 18-year-old boy, David Allen, but he was a drug addict. And when he was sometimes he would be too much into drugs that he would harm Srila Prabhupada, and he would try to. And one day it so happened that he wanted to harm severely Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada ran away with his all the belongings and came to the place where Michael Grant with his girlfriend, he was staying over there. And when Prabhupada came there, and Prabhupada could just hint him that sometimes a disciple, what he does, he accepts Guru and then he kills Guru and then he becomes Guru. So this way he hinted to Michael Grant, and Michael Grant could understand that Prabhupada is in a dangerous position, so he needs a better place, a new place. So anyway, Prabhupada had left that place where he was staying. So Mukund Maharaj got a new place. He searched everywhere. Finally, he got a place. 26 Second Avenue, which is very famous, still is there, matchless gift. And when Mukund Maharaj went there, the owner was Mr. Gardener. And Mr. Gardener, came to a conclusion that, yeah, per month he would charge $100. But Prabhupada was so intelligent. Prabhupada, saw Mukund Maharaj, Michael Grant, and he also saw this Mr. Gardener. And he put up a proposal that I want both of you to become the trustee members of our society. And Mukund Maharaj was also surprised. Which society? What society? Yeah. So there was nothing like, something official society. But Prabhupada was so intelligent that he convinced Mr. Gardener that you become the life member or the trustee of our society. And Mr. Gardener felt like, like he is giving me some upper class position in his society. So he accepted. And then, in a slow manner, Prabhupada said that, yeah, for every trustee member, we just charge $15. So we'll pay you $85 per month. And there was nothing to say, Mr. Gardner had to accept. And that's how the first place that Srila Prabhupada occupied, which was his own, and from where the Krishna consciousness movement is spread all over the world. And therein, Prabhupada started giving classes, and one of the lawyers would come there who was regular. Prabhupada asked him to make the society official. And in that humble, kind of, place, International Society for Krishna Consciousness was registered. So this is how this movement began. When the point came for initiation, so there was no planning that Michael Grant would get initiation. So one day his friend invited him for initiation. Yeah, Swamiji is organizing some initiation program. Why don't you come? And when Michael Grant went there, then he saw and got impressed with all the people getting initiation. So he also felt, why not I? Everybody is getting initiation. Why not I? And then he also sat for initiation, and then he got initiated. And 2 days later, when Mukund, he got another new name, Mukund Das, and Mukund Das and the other one, what was name? I believe Janki Mataji. She received new name Janki. Both were boyfriend and girlfriend, and they were staying together. When they came to meet Srila Prabhupada said, see, now you have taken vows, strong vows. Now you cannot, live like that. You are now initiated people. So you cannot be like boyfriend, girlfriend. So they asked, what to do, Swamiji? Prabhupada said, okay, we'll organize the Vedic marriage ceremony, and then you officially get married. And they were the first couple that Prabhupada, arranged. Prabhupada did everything. He arranged the whole program, and the cooking thing, everything he arranged. And to participate in Janki Mataji's marriage, her sister alone arrived for that program. And later on, she became Yamuna Mataji. And that is a big story. That's a big presentation for that. So we'll see some other day. Talking about services and contribution, amazing. Srila Prabhupada sent the first disciples, this Mukund Maharaj, Mukund Das, and Janki Mataji to San Francisco. And when he heard that San Francisco has become a good ground for preaching, Srila Prabhupada was invited, and when he went there, so many devotees were lined up to welcome Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was so happy to see that my disciples have done so much in San Francisco. And Srila Prabhupada was very happy, and Mukund Maharaj, that time Mukund Das had arranged, Mukund Prabhu had arranged, to so many people to meet with Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was so happy. And there only, this Mukund Maharaj only gets Syam Sundar Prabhu and his girlfriend earlier, Malti Mataji, and they were so serious that they became so pakka devotees that they contributed a lot. And we have heard that how the story comes, like Malti Mataji goes to a mall and then she gets Jagannath deities, and finally Jagannath comes to the altar. Yeah, so it was not so planned, but Prabhupada got everything, like and one day what happened, those San Francisco devotees, because they were not aware that how to deal with deities, one day they felt like Arey, our Lord in the form of deities must be feeling bored. They are into altars always. So why not take them for morning walk? So one day they take all the deities, Jagannath deities, to sea beach. When Prabhupada hears, like devotees are doing like this, Prabhupada becomes happy, at the same time aware that these people do not know anything. But Prabhupada gets indication that Jagannath wants to come out, and therein the first Rath Yatra of our movement starts in 1967. So we can see Mukund Maharaj, he was pioneer in starting, the movement and the initial phases. And that's how the first Hare Krishna temple in Francisco was established in 1967. And later on, Prabhupada sent three couples, yeah, to London. And one couple was Mukund Maharaj and Janki Mataji. So we know the story how they met Beatles, and then finally got this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, famous all over the world. And they were like Mukund Maharaj was very instrumental in producing the music, Hare Krishna album and all, along with Yamuna Mataji. So this way we see that how instrumental Mukund Maharaj was in the initial phases of movement. Later on, Prabhupada, UK become like, how Prabhupada wanted. Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur had desire that the preachings would happen in England. Somehow or other, it could not be fructified. And Prabhupada was very happy to see that my, Grihastha disciples, they have done so much, establishing Krishna consciousness in UK. So this way, we see that Mukund Maharaj was very much instrumental. And this is one later wherein we can see that how close Mukund Maharaj was to Srila Prabhupada. He writes in 1967, I want to see each and every one of you. So I am asking Mukunda to arrange my visits since he has volunteered to render this service. If any of you have any particular points you wish to discuss with me, please have Mukunda make an appointment with me for you. I am always at your service. If you chant always Hare Krishna, read my books, and preach this philosophy sincerely, then Krishna will provide you with all facility and you will not fall down into material entanglement. So this way, Prabhupada is indicating that, like Mukund Maharaj is like my right hand. You first get appointment through Mukund Maharaj. And another way, Prabhupada is indicating all of us that if we chant Hare Krishna always, we read Srila Prabhupada's books and preach the message of Krishna consciousness, then Krishna will provide all the facilities and we'll never fall down. So Prabhupada interested Mukund Maharaj so much so that he made him GVC. And later on, I believe for a long time, till 99, I believe, Maharaj was GVC for the movement. And still Maharaj is writing so many books. We can see the famous book which Maharaj has written, 26 Second Avenue, with so much of memories of the initial pastimes. And that shows the struggle that devotees in the initial times they went through, and we are doing nothing in front of them. So we'll stop here and we'll hear Maharaj's experience, and through his words in the form of video. I'll request the host to play that video. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Namaskaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Hite Namani.
Before I met Prabhupada, I was kind of a searcher. I was looking for something sort of spiritual, but I didn't know what it was. I was reading many books of Buddhism. A little unsatisfied. I didn't know what I was looking for. And when I heard that Prabhupada was giving a lecture, that he was an old Swami who was lecturing nearby where I lived, I thought I would go along and have a look. I think I was a bit of a searcher all my life. And I did find that in my Jewish background, a lot of hypocrisy. There was hypocrisy in the rabbis, there was hypocrisy in the services. I was, in a way, kind of looking for something that was devoid of hypocrisy. I was looking for something that was spiritual. I was looking for something that was devoid of faults. When I was in Manhattan, I also felt the same way. I had a career as a musician, and it was reasonably successful. And one of my musician friends, one day, when I was on a crosstown bus in Manhattan, Grand Street bus, this person gave me a piece of paper. It was a wrinkled piece of paper that had what he called the Swami's address on it. I thought I would go along and see who this person was. Maybe he wasn't a hypocrite, and he was in a very unpopular part of town called the Bowery, kind of the Skid Row of Manhattan, you might say. So I decided to go along and have a look and have a listen. One thing that impressed me very much when I first met Prabhupada, that he said was, "I am not this body." I knew that there was a deeper meaning to it because I didn't feel that way myself, but I thought that he, for one, really felt that way. He looked very distinguished. He was an older person. He was from India, and he had all of the makings of a spiritually realized person. I've met persons before who I found some faults with. They were hypocritical in one way or another. But when I met Srila Prabhupada, I didn't find these difficulties. So I approached him. I approached him at the end of his conversation. And the first words that came out of my mouth were, "I have a tambura." That's the first thing I said to him. And the first thing he said to me, he said, "Then bring it." And he gestured this way, "Then bring it." So I came a few days later with the tambura. And he was chanting, he was speaking. He had a big book in front of him. I didn't know what the book was, but every once in a while he would glance down and read from the book. It was a book of Sanskrit, apparently, a very large book. And I was impressed by the whole surrounding atmosphere. It was a very unkempt and desultory sort of place, a loft in the Bowery. And I thought, well, there can't really be anything that's wrong with this. I thought, I'll just keep continuing to come and see what he has to say. I think was involved in a kind of, you might say, legal and police problem. It was the kind of a problem where people kind of shunned me or ignored me. My phone stopped ringing, for example, and the person who came to tune my piano, for one, didn't respond, didn't call. And probably the first person that called me was Prabhupada. He called me Mr. Michael. And he said, almost his exact words were, "Mr. Michael, there has been some trouble," in a questioning way. And I didn't tell him exactly what it was, but I kind of minimized it more than it really was. And then he invited me to come to his place, which I did, and had lunch with the devotees and Prabhupada himself. I thought Prabhupada was very unjudgmental. He respected me and he called me Mr. Michael. which was unusual for someone to append the word Mr. to a first name. But he was almost fatherly, you might say, or grandfatherly. And he was one of probably the only person that maintained contact with me after my reputation had been smirched. My musical colleagues didn't want to have anything to do with me because my problem appeared in the New York Times, and many of those people had actually read about it. And I thought that this was a very significant thing, that Prabhupada had heard about it, but at the same time he was not dismissing me or in any way belittling me or thinking that he shouldn't have anything to do with me. One day before I was initiated, I was walking north on 3rd Avenue with a fellow named Raya Rama. Raymond Marias is his legal name. And he said that the Swami is going to be conducting initiation. Would you like to take part? And I thought, wow, what is this initiation? I'd never heard the word before related to what we were doing. And he said, well, I don't know much about it either, Raya Rama said. He said that what Swamiji said was that it means that you take your guru as God. And I thought to myself, that can't be right. He's not God, obviously. And then I learned later that Vishwanath Chakravarti said that a guru is to be taken as good as God. So that was quite different. And during the initiation ceremony, there were several people. I decided to do it, but I didn't know what it meant. I just thought, oh, it's some sort of a rite of passage. Why not? Everyone else is doing it that I know. Why not do it? And afterwards, I went back to where I was domiciled and saw Allen Ginsberg on television chanting Hare Krishna. So that was a kind of symbolic gesture to me that I had done the right thing. Srila Prabhupada, when he learned that I had played piano for my livelihood, he said, well, you can play the piano for Krishna. And I thought to myself, how's that possible? I'd never heard of an Indian piano player. And I told him, in relation to this, that I was going to go to India to study how to play the flute. Prabhupada said, do you know that flute players in India often spit up blood? And I never heard that before. But it kind of turned me off to the idea of learning how to play the Indian flute, because it's a very difficult instrument to play for one thing, and I for sure didn't want to be spitting up blood. What I later learned from Prabhupada, we called him the Swami then, was that it really didn't matter. One thing he said to me that I always will remember is that I will teach you how to play the piano for Krishna. And I really didn't understand how that was possible. But he was so convincing and so convinced that he would do that I believed him anyway, even though I didn't see that it was a possibility. One thing that sticks in my mind is that I was kind of a literary person and I was interested in the Sanskrit language. When I was informed by Prabhupada that he would be holding classes in this loft in the Bowery, I suggested that he teach people how to read and speak the Sanskrit language. Somehow or other, he got a blackboard. I think it had been put in a trash can somewhere. It was really a messy-looking board. Its sides were all it would look like an old throwaway thing. But he wrote on the board a Sanskrit mantra from the Brahma Samhita, which goes, Sachidananda Vigraha Anadi Vradi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That it's a famous verse from the book, and I didn't realize at the time that what he was really doing was teaching us the spiritual philosophy of Krishna consciousness, even though it was in the Sanskrit language. But I was more interested in the language itself, and I got a book called First Lessons in Sanskrit Grammar by Judith M. Tyberg. I remember the book. And there was a place called the Orientalia Bookstore. The Orientalia Bookstore was located in Manhattan. And somehow or other I found this place and got this book and learned how to write some of the Sanskrit characters with a certain type of pen. Anyway, that was the first lesson type of setting that I was in with Srila Prabhupada when he wrote on this blackboard and had everyone who was in the class learn this verse from the Brahma Samhita. Well, you might say that Prabhupada had an agenda when he put this verse on the board. And he had us learn the verse, how to write it, and how to memorize it. And after 1 week or so, the Sanskrit class kind of dissolved. There weren't any further classes. And gradually, over a period of time, maybe it was quite a bit later, I realized that it was kind of a ruse on the part of Prabhupada to teach us the grammar and flow of a Sanskrit poem, so to speak, and not follow through with it. Because what he was really interested in was getting us to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in a way that we could adapt to it. So he was taking, in a sense, my desire to learn another language in a way to inculcate the Krishna conscious philosophy in me. What struck me about the philosophy most was Prabhupada saying on our first visit, on my first visit anyway, was that I am not this body. I'd never heard anyone ever say that before. And as I said before, I didn't realize that I was not my body, but I thought that he thought that way, and so that it must be true. And then I think it was on my first visit, or second visit, that I got the books that he brought from India. And I started to read the philosophy after I got those books. I was reading the philosophy in those books almost non-stop. I thought that he used the word unlucky or unfortunate in the first part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the books that I was reading, that he was kind of very gentle, not saying that he disliked the way things were going, that he wrote later on that there was a pinprick in society at large, but that he was calling the people of this age unfortunate and unlucky. And he said, I think above all, they were unfortunate and unlucky. And that struck me as a very gentle way to say that it was a messed up society, which he later did say. But to someone like me, who was maybe a little bit acerbic on occasion, it was a very gentle way of saying it. One day, while I was visiting Srila Prabhupada, hearing him speak, he said that next Sunday we will have a love feast. And I thought love feast was a very unusual phrase for an aged sadhu or spiritual person to use, because it was kind of a hippie term, love and love feast. It just sounded like very unusual. I went along to see what it would be like, anyway. And Prabhupada showed a completely different side to him. He was the gracious host. Under one arm he had a bucket or pan full of prasadam, and he was plopping it down on people's plates and saying, more, take more, take more. And apart from being a spiritually advanced person, he was a gracious host. And I didn't see that other side of him at all that time. He was just a very gracious host, asking everyone to eat to their heart's content. And it was very sumptuous, very wonderful. One of the preparations I remember was something made with what we call chickpeas or gram flour. It was all the things were very delectable, and they were strange, but they were very good. And almost everyone enjoyed the feast. It was a love feast, but it was an unusual term to hear from his lips. Prabhupada taught many of the devotees to cook with love. Most of them were the female devotees. He taught some of the men, but I wasn't one of them, unfortunately. His sister, her name was Pishima, once sent a can of uncooked or partially cooked pompadams. It's a kind of a chapati type of thing made with gram flour. And they were folded over. And we didn't know what it was. I was in his room when Prabhupada opened the can of these pompadams, and I said, what are these? I remember asking him, what are these? And he said, I will show them how to cook these. And he showed some of the girls how to cook them, as I remember, and they were very, very unusual, but very good tasting. One of the things Prabhupada taught the devotees that he was teaching to cook, that they should be cooking for Krishna and not tasting anything while they were in the process of cooking. One of the preparations he made was we called pineapple sweet rice. It was a rice preparation made with cream and sugar and, believe it or not, pineapple. There was a device, kind of like a, what do you call those things that they evaporate over a stove? It was shaped like a trapezoidal kind of thing, and I'd never seen one before. And he said, if you put the pineapple in this, pineapple droplets will come out of the bottom, and those should go into the sweet rice. So he taught the devotees, the girls, how to make it, and it was the first time that preparation had ever been eaten. He taught them how to cook samosas and pakoras and many other wonderful things. But he said that it was all very delectable because it was prepared for Krishna. It wasn't for their own palates and for the palates of the people they were cooking for. It was that they were cooking it because they were devoted to Krishna. That was the way he taught them how to cook with love, so to speak. He taught that love wasn't a thing of this material world, that real love only took place between devotees and the Supreme Lord Krishna. When Prabhupada was in his first place at the Bowery, 5 Bowery, that was the street number, 5 Bowery, New York, he had a conflict with the 18-year-old person that he was living with. He said that the man had quote his words, ill-named me. Ill-named me. In other words, he used swear words. He was angry with Prabhupada. And I heard Prabhupada say that he had put some soap in the shower and it was in the wrong place or something to that effect. So one day he decided to just pack up and depart from that place, and he went to my place. I was also living in the Bowery, just very near to where Prabhupada was. And Prabhupada came to me and he started telling me about this conflict he was having with this 18-year-old boy that was sharing the loft with him. And I thought that the person was kind of, maybe a little bit unbalanced, but more or less harmless. And then Prabhupada said, looking straight at me, he said, we have a saying in Bengal that you take a spiritual master, you kill him, you move his dead body aside, and he gestured like, you move his dead body aside, gestured like that, and then you become the guru. And then at that very point, I realized that this man was actually dangerous. He was not just deranged, he was a dangerous person. He could actually cause physical harm to the person he was living with. And that is what I realized with Prabhupada, that he had to leave that place. And I helped him find another place. It wasn't going to be my place because it was full of musical instruments and very noisy at all hours. But I did help him find another place, which he moved to that very day. At about that time, I realized that the Swami needed a better place to operate from. For one thing, the lofts were not on the ground floor. The first loft that he was in was 4 stories or 4 floors up. The second one was 3 floors up, and I thought that he needed a better location to operate from. I took it upon myself to find such a location, but I didn't know how to go about it. What I finally did was I went to a newsstand where a newspaper called The Village Voice arrives before any other newsstands. And I looked in the lofts or storefronts for rent or for sale section and found this place called 26 2nd Avenue. And I went to the nearest telephone booth and phoned and made an appointment to see the rental agent. I think I saw him the next day. It happened very fast. So that was the day that I rode my bicycle. It was a very sunny day in Manhattan, and it was in May or June, and it was kind of warm out, and I rode up and put my bicycle, I locked it on a parking meter, and waited for this rental agent to appear. When he appeared, his name was Mr. Gardiner. He looked very bouncy, kind of. That's the way I would describe the way he looked. He wore a blue denim pants and a T-shirt. And the other person that was there with him was, Prabhupada came a few moments later, but the other person that was there with him was a fellow named Carl. Carl and I had become friends. He lived in the area. So finally, Prabhupada came along after Mr. Gardner. And Mr. Gardner and Prabhupada and Carl and I went and sat on the inside. And he said that this place is for rent, 26 2nd Avenue, and I'm willing to let you have it. And he told us that it was going to be I think it was $100 per month. And we said, okay, we'll manage. We kind of looked at each other because we didn't know where the money was going to come from, but eventually between Carl and I, we figured we could raise at least $100 every month. It was a very small amount, actually. And Prabhupada agreed to that. And he said, actually, we can make you, and he was speaking to me, and Mr. Gardner, a trustee of our society. Would you like to be a trustee of our society? He said to Mr. Gardner. And at the same time, he gave Mr. Gardner the 3 Bhagavatam books that he had brought with him from India. And Mr. Gardner looked very kind of flattered to hear that he would be made a trustee. Trustee is kind of an unusual word. It's more than just a member. It's like being a senior person of an organization, like something really upper class. And Mr. Gardner liked that idea, and he said, but instead of paying the monthly fee, and this is all new to me, a monthly fee, I never heard about a trustee or a monthly fee or organization that didn't even exist. And Mr. Gardner was very impressed with the books, and he said, okay, and Prabhupada went on to say, instead of paying you $100 per month, we'll make you a trustee and that's $15 per month. So we'll only pay you $85. And Mr. Gardner he was a little taken aback because he hadn't heard that before, but then he agreed to do it very miraculously. And he said that he had another place in the same building that Prabhupada could live in, an apartment. And Prabhupada, and we all kind of like looked at each other, where were we going to raise the money for that place too, because that was only going to be $85. And finally we decided to do it, and Prabhupada agreed, and that became his first residential quarters, right across from the storefront on 26 2nd Avenue, through the courtyard and up 1 flight of stairs. Being a trustee didn't seem to carry with it any responsibilities, because after this incident at acquiring the 26 2nd Avenue storefront, it kind of like never came up again. It was mentioned very briefly, but it never actually came up again. And a little later on, Prabhupada had his organization incorporated. But the trustee and the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that all seemed to exist before it became official. The legal aspect of making ISKCON an International Society for Krishna Consciousness, or ISKCON, came about through a lawyer named Stephen Goldsmith in Manhattan, who was a regular visitor or attendee at Prabhupada's classes at 2nd Avenue. And eventually he got the society officially incorporated as the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and Stephen Goldsmith was the lawyer who made this actually happen. There was no ceremony, it just happened kind of quietly. One day it was official, and the next day it was still official, and it's still official today. Prabhupada realized that this was important to be made into an official corporation, because corporations withstand the comings and goings of their various chief executive officers and various trustee boards and things like that. So after a while I realized that actually it was a very intelligent move, even though I thought it was kind of an unnecessary move, but I realized that Prabhupada could foresee the need to have an official organization incorporated in at least in the place where he was located. I was vaguely aware that Prabhupada had a certain business sense to him, even though he was officially a spiritual person. When I say officially a spiritual person, that's the way I looked at him. One day he asked me to have the Con Edison, the utilities company, give us electricity free of charge because of us being a charity. And when I said this to the person at the agent at the utility, Con Edison, he looked at me as if I were crazy. And he said, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And I conveyed that story to Srila Prabhupada that day or the next day. And he said, okay. And then I found out later that he himself went and saw the very same person and got him to either discount 100% or discount very somewhat the electricity bill, because because actually Prabhupada was right that being a charity we were entitled to a certain discount. He knew that, and then I sensed that he had a certain integrity about what could be done and what should be done with an official charitable organization. and that he was very intelligent from a material point of view as well as a spiritual point of view. That's one of the things I realized about him early on. Well, when I